I know you.
Namaste. In our series Swatantra Bharat 75, we welcome today Professor Rupa Bhaty. Thank you, madam, for joining. And
Namaste. Thank you so much for
many of
calling.
us know her very well because of her writings and her. She has been invited as speaker at many coveted places recently, and she has been doing her mammoth work in the research in Indology. Basically, architect by profession, but a ardent Indologist by choice and passion, I must say. So we will get her detailed introduction along with our session. But today, without taking further time, let me invite her to speak. Rupaji, kindly start your session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Narendraji. Let me just again share. I don't know why it's. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's looking fine. Please go ahead.
It's looking fine, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
So today's talk is on paradigm of Indian chronology from the perspective of astronomy and other sciences. Actually, इंडियन क्रोनोलॉजी जब हम सुनते हैं ये शब्द सुनते हैं, so people get attached to things like okay, supposedly something was happening around 3000 BCE or 5000 BCE. What does it affects us? लोगों का सबसे पहला प्रश्न होता है कि why are you all into all this game of chronology? Like इसके पीछे क्यों है? About dating of Ramayana or Mahabharata or Rigveda and other Brahmanas and things like that. So people come up with various questions about this. For them, I have created this chronological graphical presentation where I had showed that why it is important. So basically we'll exactly jump onto the first slide where I will be showing this. So you can see that in this slide, I have tried to give you a myriad information about the chronology of events. So anyone can get lost into it, since much of these will not make sense of how the presenter has approached these values. So these are accumulation of wealth of knowledge from various Indian historic texts ranging from Rigveda, Samhitas, Brahmanas, Upanishads, Itihasa, Tantra, Siddhantas, along with the new sciences and new scientific studies to place them in accordance with the chronology of events. So, what kind of chronological events here I want to share is it's about the climatology. It's about the river morphology that were changing during those times in deep antiquity, in historical times. Something was changing with the evolution of animals, and we can see that how they were evolving. Something like dog evolved from wolf, and do we find some kind of evidence for that? And when it was happening. So all these questions, and to them, the answer is all there in this single chronological event chart. But how did I approach uh, to these problems of these events, and how I concluded on these things, where to place them in the huge timeline. So for that matter, I went in deep into few things which will define the boundaries of these events. like Mahabharata, like Ramayana, like the times of Kritikas, like uh, the times of eustatic studies. Uh, do we find some kind of relation with something mentioned in Upanishad or other texts about the human evolution, also about the ethics, something like yam and yummy dialogue? When could it have had happened? So all these questions were coming up, and I then segregated them, and first of all to express all these language. So then I tried to synchronize the things according to the events that had happened in the history of humankind. And likewise, I presented uh, the series of talk which will be coming in this show. And I won't be able to commemorate the whole thing in one talk today, but I will definitely take one part of it, and I will be explaining how it reflects so many myths also in our in the form of stories in our scripture. So going to coming down to this slide, and after understanding that, see, I have shown here the humankind is having memory from 2020, 2,20,000 years back, and that memory is there in Rig Veda. But how to define that? Definitely, it was that memory which was that old. So likewise, I will be showing how I came into these kind of conclusions. So the first thing that comes into our mind is before going into the whole structure of that graphical presentation, the first thing that came into my mind was seasonal pattern. So what does Rigveda shows as the season? What does what is it trying to show us? What is it trying to convey us? So many seasonal patterns can be seen from Rigveda Samhita itself, which comes from 3 and goes till 5 seasons. So today we are discussing this issue in the later slides. But before that, we will go into how these are the markers of the chronology and why they are so essential to be known or determined. The second thing is the language pattern. So language is the first concern for this, has been the subject of all the linguistic researchers. And we don't find suitable answer for how long we know language and how long we have been speaking with each other, talking with each other. So under this section, we will discuss the parameters of deciding when humans started communicating and what patterns do we find in Rigveda itself and the other world languages, something like Rig Veda and Russia. The words have the declinations, they're very rich in that manner. In the grammatical portion, they are very rich. Why I'm saying rich? Something like the, the declination of the word goes from Prathama Vibhakti till Sambodhana. In Russia, you will find that there are declinations about 14 to 15 lines declination for different uh, thoughts of human conditions, like using of preposition, the Saptami we have Saptami Vibhakti. Likewise, Russians have many declinations there, and it is for the different purposes. Something is very much found in Rigveda also. There the declinations and different verb forms, when they disintegrate into different parts, they are very rich. They're not bounded inside one boundary, that it will only have the Prathama, Dvitiya, Tritiya, or Ekvachan, Dvivachan, and Bahuvachan, like that. So they were more richer, in fact. Likewise, we find that the Tamil and Australia aboriginals, they have great affinity with each other. Their words have great affinity with each other, with the meaning, with the kind of the speech. Uh, they resemble much to each other. So what came into my mind was, when did they separate from each other? Because in Russia, if you see, you find the river Moksha, you find Volga from Valgati. Now all these names are coming from deep antiquated Sanskrit language, and verb roots. Some of those are not in use even in Indian classical texts, but that are found on the geographies of Russia. So that made me very curious that when the humans may have migrated there, or the language migrated there, what had happened during that time. So this is the second pattern which will make us understand the evolution within the Rig Veda and what kind of history uh, it's uh, keeping within itself, and that will make us understand the chronology of the events within the Rig Veda. The third parameter is the astronomical pattern. And this is something very interesting because this is something uh, very true to its nature. Because if it is saying that the Samvatsar is happening in Kritika, that means it is happening in Kritika only. And Samvatsar used to happen from the vernal equinox day. So with the help of precision of equinoxes, we can always go back to time to find out when these events were happening. So many astronomical patterns can be seen from Rigveda Samhita itself, not only in regard to seasons, but precision of equinoxes, actual precision, heliocentric system, etc. Other issues like naming of sun as Ravi, which is found in Ramayana but not in Rig Veda. So we will discuss this also in the later slides when we will be discussing uh, under this caption, the astronomical pattern, how it decides the chronology of events within the Rig Veda and outside the Rig Veda. Fourth is the flora and fauna. So Soma, Aushadhi, Triyoga Jata, Kshetra, early farming in lake mandalas of Rigveda, dams, lions, absence of tigers in Rigveda, naming of later Hastin. So this word comes for elephant in classical Sanskrit, but it doesn't come as a matured form, Hastin, separately in Rigveda. Instead, we find Ibha and different names for Hastin. It appears that it is speaking about different type of species, in fact, not as synonyms. Uh, One thing one should note is that in Rig Veda, it is called Mriga Hastin. So it is still a shy beast there. We have not yet tamed Mriga Hastin there in Rig Veda. So Ibha, Mriga Hastin, these are all independent animals and they have not yet been tamed. So likewise, since they're not much tamed, it has not gained the proper name itself. Agriculture in crude way, use of implements to further use the flora and fauna which is available to them. Then absence of the word vrihi and godhuma in Rig Veda. The presence of mushaka, the mouse, and that is true in the later mandalas. The mouse migration and migration of name mus, which means thief. So this has traveled down to many corners of the world, and how it has an effect on the chronology of events in the text that we will try to understand. All of them gives a close understanding of evolution of flora and fauna within Rigveda itself, and the differences of metaphor use, that lion is being used as and Vrishabha. Simha and Vrishabha, they are used for the most ferocious people or the most powerful people in Rig Veda. But when we come to Ramayana times, tiger also, Vyagra also becomes one of the metaphor for those. But in the hierarchy, we always keep lion at the top. And this is not just an Indian phenomenon, this is the world phenomena. And we should understand that why this is a world phenomenon. So we will try to understand under that head of flora and fauna pattern, which helps us to understand the chronology of events. Uh, the fifth one is the river morphology pattern. Now, many river morphological patterns are available, recorded as very crucial information in Rig Veda, which also gives the evolution of their names according to their characters, geography, etc. For example, Apaya, meanings going away. This is being called for Yamuna, and this has been inferenced by me for the first time in the history of Indic studies. And this event may have been happening during 40 to 50,000 BCE. So we will be learning few things from uh, these patterns and decide the chronology of events in Rig Veda itself. Then comes the oceanic level eustatic pattern, uh, how the ocean level was increasing and likewise. So in ocean is frequently stated in Rig Veda. All the rivers flow from mountains till ocean. Interestingly, ocean levels are discussed in Maitrani Aranyaka Upanishad, stated by King Brihadratha, and not of ocean level rise, but of the ocean level fall also. Uh, there was a steep rise of ocean during 35,000 BC, and it has been recorded by King Brihadratha. Now, apart from this, we know Irina in Rig Veda, which gives us an imagery of creeks of oceans. So, Irina is something khadde jaisa, a kind of a depressed ocean. So, because of this name, the Ran came up. So, Ran of Kutch. This is the land which has come out of the ocean, and again it goes down. So, it appears from Iriati, it has come, the word has come Irina. So Iriati means moving, like, so the creeks always move because of the ocean levels coming up and going down because of the tide and all. And they change the creeks change their courses. So because of that, the name appeared, Irene. So likewise, not only Irena, but Bhujiu, and we find Bhujio Dunga in the Prakrit form of name in Kutch. So Irin and Ran gives imagery that ocean was much known, especially the mouth of Saraswati. So Ran of Kutch is all about the mouth of greatest river, Saraswati. So this is what we will be trying to understand with the help of ocean level eustatic pattern and how it fits few things and works as a benchmark, in fact, to understand Rig Veda and other Upanishads and Aranyakas. Uh, the seventh pattern is the mountain pattern, and this has been discussed hugely in Rig Veda. And their Nahan has been identified. I have identified it as Nahusha, and it has been mentioned in Rig Veda. The Nahusha is a kind of mountain, a huge mountain, and his covering with fats and snow has been discussed there by the priest of the Saint Supta. The snow cold Arbuda, again, not only Nahan, but Arbuda is also, snow-clad Arbuda is also mentioned. And this gives a vivid imagery of Pleistocene times because Arbuda is, in today's time, it is Mount Abu. And it shows, significantly, it shows uh, the snow cladding, which has been mentioned in Rig Veda. So we can understand what kind of a time I'm talking about in Rig Veda. So there are many researchers who have come with the idea that Rig Veda had been written during 1900 BCE or during 3000 BC or not more than that. Some people go till 5000 BC. So these are not uh, justifying whatever the things are present inside the Rig Veda. So one has to understand all these patterns to understand where these chronology of events are taking us. So they are definitely taking us to the deep antiquity. Then the king's lineage pattern. So it is uh, not only like Panchakrishya mentioned or Panchdhriti, they are mentioned in Rig Veda. That means the five kind of people. the only kind of tribes probably from the ancient times. But it suggests that the early tribes, these 5 tribes, have been very dominant. And you won't believe, but in today's time, if you say Africa and you have that imagination that, oh, okay, all the people look like same, and rarely one can differentiate one from the other. But there are Fulani tribes and other tribes, those who look like very much Indian. Mm, And today alone in Africa, there are 3,000 tribes with their different identities and languages. So one can understand that even if people look alike and are very same in DNA conditions, there are different tribes there altogether. And what our Rig Veda has mentioned is about the 5 tribes, or the 5 people who uh, who were very dominant during Rig Vedic times. So this will also make us understand that how the 5 tribes grow into the 10 tribes, and the 10 tribes were fighting during the Dasharajanya war. And after that, coming down to Ramayana, we find more tribes joining, something like Jamwant, who are the bear culture people, something like very dominant bear culture in Europe. Uh, so we can understand which people may have come for the Ravana Yuddha also, apart from Vanaras. So these are all different types tribes, and the names were like Rikshas, Vanaras. They're just names, not that they were ape or bear. Um, and those traces can be found, like bear people can be found in the Europe, and the bear culture is still there. They would have kind of Halloween or kind of ritualistic things with the help of having all those apparels of bear kind of thing, and they will wear that, and they will still do uh, their tribal rituals there. So these are the pattern of evolutions which will decide the chronology of events. So I have segregated all these, and we will be taking one by one in one talk, because it will become otherwise very cumbersome to understand why and how I'm taking all these evidence as uh, major evidence for the chronology of events from the human evolution. And I take Rigveda as a part of human evolution, because much of the things are very much seen there as evolving. So Sarme is evolving as dog. So the Devshuni, later she is known as Devshuni, but earlier she is a wolf, uh, Sayana says. So how it evolved into dog. And this evolution can be seen with the new sciences, that almost 1 lakh years, it took almost 1 lakh years for a wolf to become a dog. So that kind of evolution is there in Rigveda. So according to that, we have to understand the other things also, like river morphology, uh, when was Apya happening, why she is not called Yamuna during that time, and likewise. So we need to understand things, why Suvastu is called like that name, what was happening there, what kind of architecture was happening there. So the next thing is the architectural pattern. So it evolves, it starts appearing in Rigveda itself, with the mention of Vastuspati in the last mandala. Parallelly, we find the river named Suvastu, as I mentioned, which means beautiful dwellings. So a valley with a beautiful dwellings, and by that the river, so that is why Suvastu is the name. Now it is in Afghanistan and Pakistan border. The archaeological find on the Swat Valley, Rivat Site 55, gives matured wall footing with matured geometrical square hut inside. So this gives a vivid imagery that from 45,000 BCE, we knew a very matured form of architecture also. And we see that such patterns are already evolving in the Rig Veda. Not in a very fullest form, but it has started evolving. The partial evolution can be seen in Taittiriya Brahmana next, where it is said that one dwelling has a 3 wall. So the central wall is the autumnal equinox, and other are the vernal equinoxes. So That is how it makes a whole year. So that has come in Tatari Brahmana. So today we will be focusing on seasonal pattern and just one topic, and how it has decided the chronology of events from Rig Veda till Mahabharata times. So we'll try to understand that. So in the seasonal pattern, I divided it into two parts. Like in Rig Veda, there are 3 seasons mentioned, which is still being remembered as Chaturmasa. And next is the 5 season. And the harsher one were Shatahima, which is present in Rig Veda, and Sharad, which is present in Yajurveda and Atharvaveda. So, does science give us a clue to it? So, we will discuss in the later slides. So, the season pattern of Rigveda Samhita times gives us an imagery of late Pleistocene. What is late Pleistocene? It is 1,10,000 years before present till 11,000 years ago. And 11,000 years ago till today's time, we are now into the Holocene time, and we are almost at the terminal of Holocene times. After that, after 2,000 years, we will be again climbing down to the colder events, and again we will come to the kind of Pleistocene times. So this is the graphical representation of the seasonal pattern, and I have divided the whole chart, which you have seen in the first one. Here I'm only showing the major things. We were onto this slide, and there I explained how a transition of Shatahima can be seen from Rig Veda. And in the 6th mandala, this Shatahima verse, the sukta and the mantras come. And there it says about how a man is being given an ashirvachana, that he has to live Shatahima. Because Hima is the harshest season during the Vedic time. So why it is Hima? Why not the Jivem Sharada Shatam, something like Yajurveda and Atharvaveda? So it gives you complete picture that what is happening during that time. Now, who is Indra? So you will see that Indra is lauded 289 times in Rig Veda, and Agni is lauded 218 times only. So most laudable deity is Indra in Rig Veda. But why he is lauded so much? With the help of astronomy, what we try to understand is that Indra is the summer solstice point, one spoke of the year. The other spoke of the year is vernal equinox, where the Agni is happening. So Agni means Agre Nayati iti Agni. So something which is lifting up. And what happens here, why Agni is given the name to vernal equinox there? That is our understanding, that it has been given, Agni is given the name to the Samvatsara, which comes in almost all the Brahmanas. So we understand that the vernal equinox has been given the name Agni, which means Agre Nayati it is Agni, which means that it is lifting up something. So what is happening there? The sun is hopping up towards the from the equator, and now rising and setting in the northern hemisphere only. So the circle comes like it goes till summer solstice time, and the sun touches the 23 degree latitude in our times, 23.5 degrees latitude in our times, and then it tropics back. So that is why Tropic of Cancer, the name Tropic of Cancer, because from there it tropics back, it comes back towards equator. During this time, what is happening? The northern hemisphere is completely insulated, and the warmth increases in the northern hemisphere. At the same time, the southern hemisphere is experiencing the cold season. So now Indra and Agni, they are the two spokes of Samvatsar, which takes the Samvatsar towards the end to make a complete circle of 1 year. So that is why Indra is lauded. Now, why Indra is lauded so much? Because rains were scanty during Rigvedic time, and people used to pray for rain. And that is what we understand, that the transition of Shatahima comes towards the Jivem Sharadaha Shatam. That is, the Sharad Ritu becomes more harsher. So, so the person who lives for 100 Sharada is the brave heart, is the person with the strongest being. So this is how we understand that a man has to be that strong who can withstand the Shatahima times in Rig Veda. That kind of Ashirvachan was given during those times. And during the Holocene time, when the Sharada were the most harshest time, the monsoons continued post Sharada, uh, that gave us an idea that if one lives for 100 Sharad, he is the most, and one has to be that strong who can withstand 100 Sharad. So these are the seasonal connotations given to human life also. And that is how we see the transition of Rig Veda to Yajurveda. We see the transition of Hema uh, towards the rainy situation, from the Pleistocene to the Holocene time. So the story goes in this way. The next, what I'm trying to make you understand is that in Rigveda itself, it says that there are two upholders of airy space, of the sphere of light. That is, sphere of light is nothing but the ecliptic, where all the stars are hanging together on different longitudes, which gives us 27 nakshatras. Initially, it was before that it was 28 nakshatra. Even before that, it was 34 nakshatras, which is mentioned as 34 rifts in Rig Veda itself. There are many researchers who have come up with the idea that 27 nakshatra plus five planets plus sun and moon and whatnot, but it is not that. It is clearly mentioned that 17 stomas were used for the Samvatsara yajnas, and these are the Jyotish stomas, and Jyotish stomas are nothing but the nakshatras of the later time. So in the Brahmanas and in Rig Veda, we say Jyotish stomas. In the later times, it converts its word, its meaning into nakshatras later. So we find that the Indra and Agni, they are the puller of the Samvatsar, and Indra is being lauded more because the rains were more important for the grass, for the wild rice to grow, for different little herbs to grow during the Pleistocene time. So that is why the Indra was more important during that time. And we see a pattern of decline of Indra uh, in our text itself, as I showed you before also. So, who is the Indra? He is the progenitor of rains, he is the summer solstice. And do we find any episode in our text itself that summer solstice was happening in some of the, in any of the nakshatras? So we do have, we have in Tetiri Brahmana 3.1.41 to 9, where it says Atra Juhoti Agneya Swaha Kritikabhya Swaha Ambai Swaha Dulai Swaha Nityai Swaha Abhrayantyai Swaha, Meghayantyai Swaha, and Chupunikayai Swaha. And all these means the clouds, all these mean the Kritika is experiencing rain. And it is still going to come. You know, we are going to experience summer solstice, that is the beginning of rain from Kritika, not in our times, but after a few thousand years. But before that, when it had already experienced, it was happening during 22,000 BC. So this is a very direct evidence of Kritikas being Abhrayanti, Kritikas being Meghayanti. So these words corresponds to once Kritika has experienced uh, almost the last glacial maximum time. And during that, it was having the rains. During that time, it was having the rains. So we can very well understand that Rig Veda is so old and it has stopped somewhere during these times only, and after that Brahmanas continued. And after that Ramayana Itihasa came. Sri Nileshwarji already have dated 12,209 BCE. And after that Mahabharata came, where the decline of Indra can be instantaneously understood, and how the Krishna is now rising, the Vishnu is rising. And he says that now laudation to Indra is not important. So the Rigvedic deity of such importance also sees a decline in this human historical period, and we get these all memories in all different kind of stories there. And now we understood that from Shatahima to Jivem Sharadaha Shatam, the two things which has come uh, in the text, how beautifully it explains us. And going back to one initial slides, here is the Vrittasur, how uh, Indra is lamenting that why did he kill Vritta? Because after that, it's his decline time. Because of killing the snow, because of the killing of snowy mountains, uh, he has killed the Vritra, and that is the end of the Pleistocene time. And after that, the Holocene begins. Now, rains are so harsh and so much with wrath that now Indra is not at all needed. Now it is transiting into Holocene. So all these stories, they have kept the ideas of environmental and climatical changes, and it shows us so beautifully. And that is why I say why chronology of events are so important. So what we learn from this, so when people ask me that, okay, why to date this and why to date, but they carry all these information, the environmental sciences information, the climatological sciences information. What can we learn from them? What can we learn from the changes of sudden tectonic um, because of the tectonic thing, the changes of the morphology of the river, which can happen in our times also. The whole river can change its course. So we have to be very wary about and very aware about whatever things are happening around us, and we can learn from history, as it is said that history repeats. So that is why all these stories need to be decoded. These are not just myths, these are the climatological stories, these are the environmental changes stories. They are embedded in our scriptures right from Rig Veda till, in fact, post Mahabharata. We have so many stories which gives us a glimpse of what should be taken care of and why the chronology of events are important to understand. Just not the dating, but inside that those datings, there are histories which should be understood and uh, which should be taken care of for the future generations. Thank you. So we just saw how the colder Pleistocene events transited into rainy Holocene times. This was the end of part one. So in the next part, we will be taking the other subjects which I had already discussed in brief today. So this is where I will end it today. Thank you. Thank you, Narendraji.
Thank you so much, Rupaji. It was wonderful, and it must be an eye opener for many. We look forward to the forthcoming parts as well. Thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see seasonal pattern. Please start now.
Seasonal. So we already discussed all kind of patterns in short, and for the pattern of evolution, how the humans were evolving. And we also discussed the seasonal pattern in short also. But now we will discuss it in more briefer way and to understand. Many seasonal patterns can be seen from Rig Veda Samhita itself, so which commences from 3 and it goes till 5 seasons. So we will discuss this issue here. For that, we begin. So what is happening in Rig Veda is that the Indra is the prime deity in Rig Veda. So he comes almost like more than 128 times. And in Rig Veda, he's the most lauded deity, the praiseworthy one. But suddenly he declines. So why he's declining? Why the other deities are on rise in Rig Veda? So we have that kind of pattern in the early mandalas and late mandalas. So the most ancient deity is Indra. Uh, Apart from that, Agni is also the most lauded deity, and Indra and Agni are the upholder of sphere of light in Rig Veda. So, what kind of thing we understand from Rig Veda is that uh, the seasons which were growing from 3 to, that is Chaturmasa, that is the 12 months were divided into four months, and only 3 kind of seasons were experienced, in which we find that the Hemant word is absent, and Shishir word is also absent. So Hemant word itself was in evolution kind of thing. So what I'm trying to say is, from with the help of human evolution, the words were also evolving, and we see that Hemant and Shishir probably comes in the most last mandala, but not in a very profound way. Just like Hima, that has already come in Rig Veda in a very profound way. So Shattahima kind of thing we always listen from Rig Veda. Rather than Jivem Sharadaha Shatam, we come across in Yajurvedic texts and also in Atharvaveda. So this is trying to show us the chart that I'm showing here is about the seasons, and this is the most earliest memories of the experiences. So the human experiences, these are all human experiences, and that has been recorded in Rig Veda. The thing is that since we look at Rig Veda as an Apaurushaya, that has a reason for that matter why it is said Aparushaya. It was not to be touched because it was not to be edited. So whatever the Drishta has done, given as the mantras, that should not get distorted or kind of interpolated. So they made it mandatory that these were not made by anyone. So these are the God given, and we have to like um, adhere to that, and those suktas cannot change even with this kind of accents used for um, saying the mantras. So we see that 3 to 5 seasonal patterns that is being gathered in Rig Veda itself, and it comes till Hima, and it doesn't say that Hima ends. And this pattern can be uh, completely compared with the new sciences, which gives us an idea how the Rig Veda can belong to the late Pleistocene times. So late Pleistocene times means the, almost like it's going from 1,20,000 years back, and it comes till 11,000 years, 11,000 before present. So this is the Pleistocene time. And Sri Nileshwarji has already done a huge, humongous task of writing and deciphering the seasonal pattern in Ramayana. And that gives us an idea that it was also happening during the late Pleistocene times, and the terminal of that Pleistocene times. We find that Hima is not the deity in Rig Veda. Why it is not a deity in Rig Veda? Because of its huge abundance. So जो चीज़ बहुत सारी होती है तो उसके लिए प्रयत्न करने की ज़रूरत नहीं होती. Laudation is not required. So that is why Hima is not a deity there. So it is a kind of a Vritrasur, probably. The Hima is like obstruction for many of the things in daily or day-to-day life. So now we will try to understand the peak of ice age worldwide and microclimate of Himalayas. So conditions were not suitable for habitation in Thar region, and suddenly we see disruption of stone implements also. So from 40,000 BC, we don't see any stone implements in the Thar area. So suddenly the stone implements vanished. Uh, that is, the people vanished and people may have migrated to other river regions. And most of the region became very arid due to early glaciation of Himalayas. So the rains were already scanty as compared to Holocene times. And they were just half of our times. So one can understand why Indra was lauded. So Indra is always associated with the rains. If even in today's time, and we see the kind of laudation done till Mahabharata times with the help of many stories imbibed in the Mahabharata and ethnographic memories like Govardhana Parvat. So what is actually happening with the seasonal pattern? So we have, uh, since we just had a talk that three, that was Chaturmasa, like was there in Rig Veda, and then 5 seasons in Rig Veda. And due to the harshness, uh, we used to say that Shatahima Vira in Rig Veda. That means that the one who lives for 100 years of Hima, who crosses the 100 years of Hima is Veer, is the most valorous person, is the brave heart who has lived so many years of Hima. Likewise, we say in today's time, Jivim Sharada Shatam. So Sharad becomes harsher, that is the Holocene time. And you would be amazed that whatever kind of monsoons those times were we were having, it was almost much more than what we are experiencing today. So one can understand the flooding in today's time, how disruptive it becomes, and it can be so fatal also. Just now we had a flood in Sindhu River, and Pakistan is also experiencing that. The similar way, Gangetic plains also flood, and there are so many loss of lives. So that becomes more harsher, and when it became more harsher, we say that Jivem Sharadha. So these two things come to our mind to create an imagery that what was happening in the late Pleistocene times, why Indra was lauded, and what was happening during Holocene times, why there was a decline of Indra. So decline of Indra almost began from 20,000 BC, around last glacial maximum. And during that time, the advent of monsoons were trying to take off uh, in a better way from the from before the Pleistocene times, if we compare. And this is the transition, a seasonal transition picture itself come in all the Vedas. That is from Rig Veda to Yajur Veda to Atharva Veda. We find that. So this whole seasonal pattern of Pleistocene times is dominated by Indra. And now towards Holocene, we find that the narration needs a change. So the Shatahima, the memory of colder event, was uh, churning up and was turning down the Rigvedic pattern of laudation. So the end of Hima is absent, neither it says anything about Shishir. The conspicuous absence of these words suggests that they have not been yet experienced. The Rigvedas had not experienced these 2 seasons, that is the Hemant and Shishir. And that is why we have these mantras there. Now, who was Indra and Vritra? So, in this slide, I have shown a picture of Vritasura, who is like killed by Indra, and Indra still laments. You can see that this image shows that how he's been killed, and how it is as huge as a mountain. So even the artists have this in mind, that something which is obstructing, which was obstructing, is now not obstructing. So river is all flowing, and there is no Hema there, and Vritasura is lying down. So it's such a beautiful imagery created by some Mr. Das there. And here we see that this is the time when the glaciation is declining. So it is deglaciation time. The killing of Vritasur, killing of an obstruction. This is the physical obstruction. I'm not saying about the consciousness obstructions. There are different layers in Rigveda. We have to understand that. And this is the Vritasur. This is the deglaciation memory in Rigveda. So uh, after that, we see that the most lauded Indra is declining. But for that matter, one has to understand what is actually Indra is and what is Agni. So why these two are the most lauded deities in Rigveda? So Indra and Agni are nothing but the 2 spokes of year. One is the vernal equinox point, and the other is the summer solstice point. And the vernal equinox is the Agni, where we say that Agre Nayati iti Agni. That is the upholder of the Samvatsar. That is the puller of the Samvatsar. And that is the maker of the Samvatsar. So it brings all the nakshatras upward from the vernal equinox time. And that is why it is said Agre Nayati iti Agni, the one which takes the things up. It can be smoke also, it can kind of thing which these ancient people had the imagery that during the morning time when the yajna is being done, and because of the laudation and all, the Agni is now taking up. And that theory came in the Indians also later, during the advent of industrialization during the last 150 years, 200 years, what we have seen. So these concepts, Rigvedic concepts, were transforming into the scientific concepts also later. So what we see here is that the Agni is the one who is happening during the springtime, but Indra is at the summer solstice point. He is the one who just take out every. He is the most powerful deity who takes the Jala Tattva from the earth. So this is how we say that the Apaha also becomes a deity, and that has been taken up by Indra. So he's the Indra, he's the Idandra, he's the even the drop. He is the number one, and so many things are being associated with Indra in Rigveda. So he is the maker of rains because he absorbs, because of the high heat, he absorbs the atmospheric apaha. So he creates the cloud, and that is when the rains also begin. So he is the rainmaker. Uh, that is why we remember him in this way. Now, the transition of Shatahima, that the colder event, we see that is happening during the Holocene times. Um this is again a beautiful pictorial presentation by Mukund Muraridas, I remember. So the killing of Vritasur is the going away of glaciation, and holding up of Govardhan mountain by Sri Krishna is a representation of monsoonal peak during Holocene times. So this is the interesting information that the Indra's lament hold. That is, by killing the snow, Indra lost his laudable position also, giving rise to the Holocene reign. So, and that amazing that we have the continuity of all kind of ethnographic memories um, and scientific memories, in fact, in Rig Veda also and in Mahabharata also. So these little stories in Indic scriptures carry so many myriad information that we are just scratching the surface to decode. Next is that we come across the Krishna's battle with Indra in transporting the Parijata tree from Indra's heaven. So this is again one interesting fact that during the Pleistocene times, due to 4 to 5 degrees more colder times, and also high glaciation in Himalayas, the northern India was not having much trees due to that. So it was becoming more arid during that time, and new sciences, one can go into the research papers and read what was happening during the upper Paleolithic and Pleistocene times. Though we were having rivers, the things were becoming terribly arid. And due to this aridity, the flora and fauna was experiencing a great setback. So what was happening? The trees were almost like not seen much, which were now growing during the Holocene times. So the forestation, deforestation had already begun during the Holocene times. That already started from 11,000 before present. And that also comes in this little story of Parijata tree. So this also gives us a glimpse that whatever Indra was holding in his heaven is something like the seeds, probably, and that were again rediscovered, or it was again itself recreating the forestation with itself happening during the Holocene time because of all these uh, good rains and, in fact, very peak of rains. So this can be understood. So these are little pictures that I gathered here to show you how the transition of memory was taking place, not only for the for the seasons, but also for the flora and fauna associated with them. So we also see the transition of like Indra being mounted on horses in Rigveda, like very unlike in today's time what we have the imagery of Airavata. So from the Airavata, from the horse Ashwa to Airavata, there is again a change that shows that Ashwa were declining, and because of such kind of condition, the elephants were rising. So because of that, again, the Parushni river becomes Iravati, and the elephants of the Iravati rivers were probably called Airavata. So such names also were coming in due to the seasonal pattern change. So many things were seen. So finally, we see a pattern in Rigveda with the word hema for staying live for 100 years. Instead, it's so harsh that if one lives 100 hema is a brave heart. Such ashirvachan were given during Rigvedic times. Instead, we find jivem sharadaha shatam and jivet sharadaha shatam in Atharva Ved and Shukla Yajurved. Such was due to the harshness of rainy season that we just concluded. After Indravritta, this Indra's lament, we see this kind of imageries coming in. So the new sciences revealed that the glaciation of Himalayas had already begun during 40,000 BC. that I already spoke. And this we need to have in our minds, that the most coldest spell on the earth was during 22,000 BC, but India was already experiencing from 40,000 BC. So one can understand that thoda sa bhi uh, ओलावृष्टि होगा कहीं पे भी, and if the snowfall is there in Himalayas, even in our times, the whole of India is under the spell of cold waves. So one can understand during those times, during 40,000 BC, when the glaciation began, what kind of condition the whole North India, in spite of being so many rivers there, what kind of conditions it was bringing to the northernmost Indian peninsula. So this is what I just wanted to give a brief about the transition of season and seasonal pattern and how it works in the chronology. And from this coldest spell, when the climate became the most arid of it, the Holocene also began. So this clarify why no system of Shishir came in during Rigveda. So Rigveda doesn't have the word Shishir at all. So, this also clarifies why Sharad becomes harsher during the Holocene time and why our Ashirvachanas were also changed. Now, these are the two mantras I wanted to share, and people can go into Rig Veda and there they can read it in a very proper way to understand why these mantras were so much needed, why we needed to like why we needed the Sharad to be more amiable. We are just praying that, okay, if we live Sharada, that means we see so many things in our life. So thus, this is how the decline of astronomical Indra can be understood, and this shows that how we were observing the seasons in a very micro level. So, in the world history, probably this I don't know why the UNESCO has taken Rigveda as the most. It has declared it as the most indigenous text, but of course it is, and we should understand with the perspective of new sciences what kind of history is hidden in this text also, not just by taking it as a Poroshaya, but to understand what kind of memory, the ancient memory, because this is the oldest extant in this living world. So one has to understand the historicity within this text also. As Nirukta has already said, that it is Aitihasika. So people come to me and they debate me that why so much of studies from Rig Veda. So it is very painful to understand that Indians are not doing much studies of Rig Veda. Rather, the West and other academias, they are doing much research in Rig Veda in whatever manner they feel they do it. So at least they are doing. We are not much into the studies of Rig Veda neither in our universities nor uh, in the Sanskrit subject also in the classes, schools. So after this seasonal pattern, I come to the language pattern. So now when I'm talking about like 35,000 BC Brihadratha or 40,000 BC glaciation and Hima in Rig Veda, and I'm equating this time to that time. People say that Rig Veda, they are very happy with Rig Veda to be 1800 BCE or 1900 BCE. So this is a kind of stamp which is uh, put on us that Rig Veda is not older to that. Just because of few pointers like Ayasa, like chariots and something like that. And they say that no, it is impossible to have something during 40,000 BC. So for them, I would like to say that um, we don't know because even Meoner and many other researchers who have done the Bhimbetka studies of petroglyphs and um, the art there, they find that this is very ancient kind of rathas that are being created there. So everything has a precursor. Like helicopter, it was designed, conceptualized by even Aristotle also, and even mm, uh, Michelangelo also. So these people, these Leonardo da Vinci also. So these people were not just if they cannot have it, they were not conceptualizing it. It was not there. So the Rigvedic people, they were seeing all the chariots flying in the sky. So with the help of the word Ratha, they always come into the conclusion that, okay, this is just uh, uh, impossible that Rigveda can go beyond that. But the other things take the Rigveda to the late Pleistocene times, and we need to understand that. Now, language pattern. Now, since we saw that Richa is coming down to us from late Pleistocene time, at least, then the more complexities arise to understand the origin of language. Because people say that so many researchers, now Chomsky and many of them, language must have happened in a chutki baja ke. Just in a moment, the language must have come and we all started speaking. It's not like that. Everything has its evolution, just like the seasonal pattern we saw in Rigveda. Likewise was the language. The first language, how it originated, that today we will discuss in a brief. So language becomes the first concern. For this has been the subject of all the linguistic researches, and we don't find suitable answer for how long we know language, or for how long we have been speaking or communicating with the help of phonemes, that is different sounds that we make with the help of different faculties of our mouth. So Constant Holden, he came up with a paper, No Last Word on Language Origin. And he rightly says this because he holds this view that the sound system, the human upper respiratory tract made speech possible as the high larynx seen in species like the chimp and all dropped, and creating an expanded pharynx. So you can see in the human, portion, and that is the pharynx. So the elongation of that pharynx uh, brought in, uh, making us able to create more different sounds. So this makes us different from the chimps, which is genetically hardly point 0.06 percent different from us, and yet they cannot speak, and we are speaking. So what made us speak actually? They are more better observer than us. They have We have memories. We have 74 TB capacity of memory in our brain, and this was increasing. So the chimp's brain was not increasing in that way, but we were increasing in our cranial capacity size of the brain. So this anatomically difference didn't come all of a sudden. For millions of years, probably the Homo group was experiencing sounds, and they were or sounds they were creating. So in that sounds, it was like mm, ka kha ga ga, or ta tha da da, or la pa pha ba ba, the varnas that we speak in Sanskrit. So all kind of the faculty of mouth was used for that. And for that matter, when we started using so many faculties of mouth, and because of that we created sounds, different sounds, and that created words, and that created the thoughts and languages. But why language was so required? So language is our world of world view. So whatever we are viewing, like if I'm viewing a book, uh, if I'm viewing this screen, so I need to express it in some way or the other. So for that matter, we need a language. Now, this is something very interesting, that the sound system, uh, three extra, that is the cerebral, palatal, and guttural, came with fences in humans, which is facilitated due to an expanded pharynx. And as per Panini's Sutra, you can see the sequence, Akuha Visarjaniya Kantha. So it will give the ka, kha, ga, gha, which is coming from right from the throat. Then ishu shanam talu. So ichu, and yasha, these will be used with the help of talu. Then ritura shanam. This is very interesting to understand. This makes us so much different from the other animals. Cerebral. So the murdha, the cerebral, and so the re position is the murdha. So the
1 minute.
so I was
Yes.
I was saying that the different portions or different portions of the mouth, how it was used indigenously, and how it was used very interestingly by the humans from very ancient times. Uh, the kind of memories Rigveda is carrying, it appears that the language had begun a very long time ago. And similarly, this researcher also says that at least like mm, around 4 lakh years ago, we may have begun with a very profound language system, and not because of that, but he found a discovery of a lance of a uh, in Sanskrit we say rishti, and it has come in Rigveda also. So the lance, which is made with the very artfully and beautifully, and has been chiseled, so it cannot happen without a language. So even the stone tools, which is going on from 8 lakh years ago, these stone tools which were used by the earlier homo groups before Homo sapiens, uh, they say that creating such stone tools with the help of flaking it and creating the kind of stone knives and axes, hand axes, they cannot happen without language. So there has to be some kind of a communication that is going on in between them. So in that process, they were creating different sounds, and they were using all the faculties in a very profound way, much so that even the genetics changed. And for lakhs of years, probably after that, we created this larynx to be so elongated, which can create more sounds like the cerebral and guttural and the murdha and the talu palate. So we have the curvilinear palate because we use so much of tongue that it gave that shape altogether. It's not like flat like chimpanzee. So that is what made us different from the other animals. So this makes us different from chimpanzees and other homo groups a bit. We use all the faculties of production of sound from inside the mouth. And with ease and with the help of longer pharynx, cerebral, curved palatal, and shrieked guttural, with respect to other species, we had this benefit of creating sounds. In the chronology of event, it is very important to understand this aspect also. Now going back to like okay. So in the language pattern, what is Rigveda trying to say? So As I said that Rigveda is the oldest extant. So there has to be some kind of a clue from where the Vach or Vak came. And Vagambrani hymn to Vak, deity Vak, comes in 10th mandala. That is the later mandala. But it comes in a very profound way where she says that my birthplace is in the midst of the waters. So it's something very unique that she had spoken about. Uh, Probably it is saying the origin of the language that happened in the midst of waters. That is the hydronymy based places where the language began. And the most profound hydronymy uh, places are Saraswati, Drishadvati Apya, where we say that it is a Nabha Prithipya. It is the choicest of the places, Vara Prithipya. So such things come up in Rigveda itself. The Saraswati again becomes the deity of Vak. So it's like laudation to Saraswati is like laudation for the language, the origin of language. So it appears that the world history might converge into this, that probably the languages began from the Saraswati region. This is my take on, as she says, my birthplace is in the midst of the waters. Now, apart from that, in what form the watch was, यानी कि जो watch है वो किस तरीके से उसमें कहा गया है. So all these chanda meters come into existence in Rigveda itself. So they are all identified with watch. So Gayatri, Ushni, Anushtup, Brihati, Pankti, Trishtup, and Jagati. These are all uh, identified with Vach. Other than that, it is Vach which has created all the worlds. This is something, such a beautiful phrase the Vakyapadiyam gives, and it says that the whole the world which is being experienced by human, whatever he sees, uh, this watch has created those worlds. It's not that the somebody uttered and it happened there. It was not something like Midas touch, somebody touched with the uh, uh, touched and it turned gold. It's not that the watch created the trees or watch created the rivers or mountains or everything, but it gave them entities. It gave them the words so that we can address it, uh, that this is this tree or this is this river, and we named it, and that is why we created a worldview of our own. And for creation of the worldview of our own, the language was the must. And that is why I say the language may have come from the waters. What Vagambari want to say is that this is the origin place, or maybe she remembered that, and that is why she says that this is the place of origin of Vach. So such beautiful phrases are there in Rig Veda, which just raises your hair that such kind of memory they were carrying with themselves. Now, the most important thing that I learned from Professor V.N. Jhaji, he says Chando Bhasha. So the Rig Veda, whatever chanda, meter, which are to be identified with Vach, like Gayatri, Ushni, and all. These chandas are nothing but bhasha. So bhasha is the spoken language. It's not the written language. So why Chando Bhasha? Because that was the spoken language during those times. And that language has been taken into account to express um, the higher world's uh, knowledge to us. So that has been used. So we say Chando Bhasha. So that was the spoken language. That was not just to be like mantra part karna hai. It was not like that. Uh, it was the spoken language people were speaking with each other in this form. They were speaking in Gayatri, Ushni, Anushtup, Brihati, Pankti, Trishtup, and Jagati. And uh, because of that, the whole language system evolved. Why I say why I'm taking this as an origin point, the midst of waters. So the Saraswati was itself so wide, and probably due to the morphological changes, it was creating so many sarah also, that is the lakes also by the side of rivers. When the loops get disconnected and the waters remain uh, across both the sides of the river, and it creates so many lakes also with it, so many ponds also with it. Something like in Bengal, we see so many ponds after the flooding, after the deflooding, like the floods when go away. There's so many ponds, natural ponds and lakes being created, and then again habitation come across them, and again they go away when the flood come, and this is the continuous process. So this is what I understood, that uh, the origin thing is there in Rigveda itself. Now coming to a universal thing, what was happening outside India. So we come across for the language pattern, the Tower of Babel. So people say that the science is ever changing and its boundaries are not constant. When researchers are still to find when language came in and how it reverberates among different human tribes, sometimes with very similar sounding words all across the world, something like Shakra or Shukra. So Shukra is used for the whiteness, white color. It's one of the brightest planets. And likewise, the Sharkara in the Sanskrit, when this word comes, and we see that Sharkara becomes sugar, becomes Zuckerberg, and whatnot. So they are all similar sounding mm, kind of word. So if some Sanskrit person goes to Germany and listen carefully to Zucker, and he will definitely identify it as a Sharkara. And why not? Because we see these language patterns are of three types. Uh, One is India centric, one is Iran centric, and then they say the Proto Indo European or Proto Indo Iranian. But Indo is always there. So that is something very interesting. They cannot leave Indo at any cost. For Indo-Chinese, Indo-Burmese, and uh, South Asian languages, for South Asian languages also, India is the center. So in India itself, again, two divisions are made. That is Aryan type of languages, so it becomes Indo-Iranian, and then that is Proto-Indo-Iranian, and then independent Dravidian type, which is Munda type of different languages. So they created all these things. Now, there is a hint in Hebrew Tower of Babel about uh, did it originate from one place, and like Rigveda is saying, did it originate from one place, and then when the people migrated here and there, and then there was a difference in languages. So this hint is in the Hebrew Tower of Babel story, and this uh, comes from the pattern was changing, as we say in Hindi proverb that कोस कोस में बदले पानी चार कोस में बाणी. So when you go almost like 4 times 18 kilometers. Almost the dialect and the things, the language differs a bit. So I can say in Bangla Jol, but it will be Jala in Gujarat. So kind of evolution, kind of evoluting, or kind of sorry, not kind of making a sound in a very different way, uh, so that they look distinct probably, or probably they had that Prakrit thing with them, and their Sanskrit will appear a bit different from the South Indian Sanskrit. The Bengal Sanskrit would appear in a very different genre while speaking. So these things come up. So people say that science is ever changing and its boundaries are not constant. And researchers are still to find, as I said. So in India itself, again, two divisions are there, and we see the same kind of stories going on everywhere about the language. So what does the Tower of Babel try to make us understand? Again, in Taittiriya Brahmana, there is it directly identify with the living Saraswati. So living Saraswati is not the river Saraswati, but the living Saraswati is a kind of origin of language. She gave the language to us. And it exactly points us towards the region Saraswati also. So when the Hebrews are saying that when the people migrated from the east, that is probably they are saying it correct. So we have the hints from the Rig Veda itself that how the language pattern was evolving. In the Rig Veda itself, the language was evolving. Like if I take a word like mriga, mriga is to be used for every beast. Likewise, if I say angirastama, so we were so short of words that Angirasa gave his name to the Surya Rashmi. So the language pattern itself is evolving inside the Rig Veda. We don't find Vyagra, but uh, we find Simha. So even the animals are evolving there. So we will discuss the animal pattern in some other talk. But today I'm trying to understand what language pattern is trying to say to us. So this Tower of Babel of Hebrew uh, language information is very important and critical to understand. And also Rigvedic Vak is critical to understand where she was born. And in this whole thing, we find that not only the Tower of Babel story is present in Palestine and Israel side, but this story has a similar construct even in our northeast India. So in one of the gadget, it is being notified that there is a story similar to Tower of Babel about the language pattern. So this I wanted to bring to your notice, that how the language was evolving within the Rig Veda, where was the origin, how the West near Greece, how they take this language, and how Hebrews have this Tower of Babel story there, and uh, from where the language migration might have had happened. So when we go back to like for any word, say for any word, the Wiktionary or the other uh, sites, they don't give us exactly the Sanskrit root to be the origin place. They always give us the Proto-Indo-European, a new kind of mm, root is being created to give a balance between the East and West. But if we go to the Sanskrit root, it is the same thing which Proto-Indo-European root is trying to say. So originally it is the Sanskrit and probably the Rigvedic Sanskrit. That is the main origin point from where the whole of the language and the making of words appear. Now, as I said that whatever we see or experience as what Watch or the Vak was trying to say, uh, it refers to the world entity. So what does language do? It maps the reality and it expresses whatever is there. It's the flower, then it will express that this is a flower. The color in that flower, it will express. The language can only express that. So this is the benefit we have with respect to the other animals. And this language, that is the world of our experience, it is being encoded in a form of language. And this language is again being that which was encoded by us, that this is the red flower or this is the pink lotus. Whatever we have identified and we said, Pankaja. So the rule is that it is coming out of Panka, and that is why it is named as Pankaja. So the whole the evolution of that from where it is coming, so it also gives an idea that how we were naming things. And every word has a kind of root assigned to it, and all uh, the words have a place of origin. So one root can give so many thousands and thousands of words it can create. Now, when we go from here till the Greek and Latin world, something, for example, hora. The hora or becomes our in English. The phonetic semblance, what I'm trying to say is that when once this was encoded as a hora, which comes from Huran, if that is encoded in our language, the same kind of sound cannot be produced by a Greek man who is living so many uh, kilometers apart. Suddenly, two people cannot get the same idea. It is not something happening like God has given, dropped the idea, same idea to one Indian person, and same idea to the Egyptian or Greek person. And okay, fine. Both will have the same kind of word. One will be having from Proto-Indo-European, and the other one will be having that is a kind of same language going towards Europe, which has a little affinity with Indian. And here we have the Sanskrit roots for what the West says that it has also come from the Proto-Indo-European, and because of that they got that word and we got this word. No, it was not happening in that way. We encoded the kind of reality, and that migrated to such a distance that it lost its dialects. Probably it lost its kind of uh, the method of use of the different faculties inside the mouth. Something like what I said about the jal. So Bengalis will say it jol. So the o thing, o thing has come here. So that is the thing happening there also. So we need to understand that the same thing cannot be mapped in different areas from different people. It definitely needs a path to travel and get deformed. Even some words that may have come from Greece and we may have improvised on it. This can also happen. But after improvisation, we always find that there is a root in Sanskrit verb root uh, foundation. So it is very easy for us to identify any other word and its affinity with any kind of root, and we can process it and we can definitely reverse engineer it. But the sugar and sharkara, like sharkara, which passed through so many places and reached uh, Germany as Zucker, this cannot happen at same time in two different places with a little difference of sound system or the use of the faculty of our mind. So, in my opinion, whatever Rigveda is trying to uh, share us, whatever Tower of Babel is story is trying to tell us, is the language pattern and its origin may have been the from the Indian platform, and it is very easy to identify. So today, I just wanted to make you understand what is the local and universal thing in language pattern, and what kind of time frame we are looking for the language pattern, and it so much matches with Indian uh, Rigvedic text, and that gives us a clue that if the aerodynamic lands can be crafted 4 lakh years ago. So definitely these were not, uh, these cannot be created single-handedly. They need to communicate with each other so that one says that, okay, you fell that proportion, you chisel this and use this stone tool and create this, and now we will use it for this purpose and all. So the whole process needs a language. It cannot be like everyone is kind of deaf and dumb and just using the stone tools and not speaking with each other at all. So these were something I cannot imagine. And suddenly they started speaking with the Neolithic uh, emergence, so with more sophisticated tools. So it doesn't match with the reality. So the socially shared meaning shows up around like 40,000 years ago. Now, during that time, 40 to 45,000 years ago, we are naming things. We are naming things and we are mapping those realities in a different way. Something like for the river named Suvastu. So it relates to the Vastu. It relates to the dwellings. And we find that Rivat site 55 is having the oldest footing on this earth. So it's going back to 45,000 BCE, and that is why I can correlate. I was quite puzzled that okay, why the name Suvastu uh, and Vastushpati also, one name Vastushpati also comes in Rig Veda. So some kind of a Vastu Shastra, not today's Vastu Shastra, but uh, some kind of architecture had already begun during 45,000 BC with such that we will discuss in the other portion, in the architecture portion. But such tools they already created so that they can chisel the stone in a very rectangular fashion so that they can use it for the Agni, hearth inside the home. So such tools when come up in picture, and such foundation can be seen. Can you say that there was no language during 45,000 BC? No. If you are doing something with the art, or artistically you are doing some work, you need to express for the things needed for that artwork. You need to express yourself, and for that matter you need language. So when the people come up with the idea that okay, before 3000 BC the world was not there, 4000 BC, 4004 BC the world came into existence, and why the world came into existence, because it gives, Vash gives the mm, reality, and we can map the reality, and we can name those realities. So these are very crude thoughts that our civilization is going through. One should understand that how old the whole situation can be for everything, not only the seasonal pattern in Rigveda, but also for the language pattern, which was evolving itself in Rigveda. So for today, we'll stop here. Uh, and here it is, like, I'm showing this from the same paper, this picture, where it already is saying that 150,000 years ago, the complexities of language may have begun, but still they have this mindset, even after having all the faculties inside the mouth to create all these noises and different to assemble those noises as words to map the reality. Still, our own scientists, they say that, uh, but the science of uh, complex language don't proliferate until 40,000 years ago. But what is the proof that even 40,000 years ago you had this similar type of language? For that, we don't have any tape recordings. For that matter, we don't have any movie clips. So how to understand what a man or Homo sapien was speaking during that time? So for that matter, we always have to go back to Rigveda for everything, in fact, just not like season, language, but for everything. Even for architecture, you have to go back to Rigveda to understand what it is trying to say. So here today I will stop. I hope Narendra ji, it was okay. If you have some questions, you can ask.
Uh, Thank you so much, Rupaji. It was fantastic, as I said. And definitely, right now, we'll try to just go through it again and think of it. And if there are some questions, we'll again come back to you. But thank
Sure.
you once again for joining this series, Swatantra Bharat 75. And we look forward to having more sessions from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.